please smash that like. We're going to jump into the Jasmy coverage that we have for you tonight. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. I'm just going to get rid of some of these tabs real quick. I'm going to give a shout out to 279. He's another Valley of the Sun person, right? Phoenix metropolitan area. And, you know, there's a lot of people here in the Phoenix area that are big proponents of like DLT, blockchain, and all that. I think it's pretty cool. All right, so let's get into this. Shout out to 279 once again. Please give him a follow over at Jasmy Promoter. Goes on a little bit about this whole concept of Society 5.0. And I want to state this. As much as I want to just release this video that you guys don't even know about, I got some great footage of the concepts of Society 5.0. And when I eventually release the video, it's going to be called something like, you know, the Internet of Things, Society 5.0. You know, what's it really going to be like? You know what I mean? And I'm actually give you some really like awesome visuals. And I may take my phone because, you know, it's got a good camera on it. And I might try to experiment with some things, right, to make it just that much more pizzazzy. I might actually kind of make it like almost like a trailer, but like give me some of that research too. So it's going to be a little bit different than what you're used to. But we'll be on the lookout for it in the future. It ain't going to come out anytime soon, but it's going to be pretty sweet. Anyway, let's jump back into this topic. He says he would like to explore the declining birth rate in Japan. That is something worthy of a mention. All right, Tara Kono mentioned some of these key things in his last interview. Japan's birth rate has been decreasing, and the creation of Society 5.0 aims to improve work-life balance, allowing citizens more time for family and raising children. Now, this right here, even if you're not a proponent of the concept of Society 5.0 because you don't like the idea on paper of like the concept of, you know, this sounds like 1984, Big Brother and so on. To me, not exactly, right? There's a difference between China, right, as in Red China, you know, the People's Republic of China, compared to Japan. You know, 15-minute cities in, you know, places like Beijing, right, is a totally different type of totalitarian approach compared to what Japan is trying to do. Now, while we may not understand some of these concepts here in the United States, and I'll be honest, I don't ever see like a 15-minute city or, you know, smart cities in Texas and other places like that. I'm not running down Texas. I love Texas and other states that are, you know, pro you know, constitutional rights and stuff like that. But the key thing is this: there's a difference between the Far East and where we live at here. I've said that numerous times. But over there, you know, these people are very, very busy. Not to say that we're not busy. They're always on the go, right? And so for a lot of them, they may only get like a 45-minute to 1 hour window. If you can create any type of thing that's going to increase more time through modern technology for these people to spend it quality time with their families, is that such a bad thing? Just saying. So he says he believes that Jasmy's platform, along with the remote work product, could potentially increase the chances of conception when men and women spend time together. Yeah, men and women. Yeah, at the end of the day, 1 + 1 = 2, right? We get where he's going with that. So Jasmy Secure PC plans to align seamlessly with Japan's forward-thinking concept of just that, Society 5.0, which seeks to build a human-centric society using advanced technologies like AI, Internet of Things, big data to address challenges like the aging population and low birth rate. It says, in this ambitious initiative, the Secure PC plays a crucial role in liberating both men and women from traditional work settings by promoting remote work or work from home arrangements. So this is something that you got to think about for a moment, right? You know, I know we're talking about Asia. We're talking about Japan, okay? Some people don't even consider Japan, I guess, an Asian country. They're like, it's you know, they're Pacific Islanders, whatever you want to call it, right? I was always raised that Japan's part of Asia. Teach us on, right? But my key thing is this. In Europe, for instance, like, you know, their work week isn't as much as what we have here, like a 40-hour week and so on. They even, I believe, get an extra day off. Think about that for a second. They understand that more time with the family means kind of like what Japan is talking about with when they talk about data, happiness through data, which sounds crazy, right? But a harmonious lifestyle is the end goal. So is it too far different from what they're trying to accomplish in Europe, like places like Italy and so on, right? Even though it's not the same type of tech, I think it's the same type of outcome, right? More time with the family equals happier people, which means more productivity. That's the bottom line. It states, by automating laborious tasks with AI and robots, this will provide more free time, with Japan hoping citizens will use it to focus on starting families. I mean, if you have no time at all, it's just work, 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 work. I'm not trying to reference that song from Rihanna. You're not going to have a lot of time to, rumble in the jungle, right? So it says, by embracing Society 5.0 principles and using the secure PC, Japan aims to balance technology and people's well-being. Basically, like what I just said, right? So the combination of Jasmy Secure PC and Japan's Society 5.0 presents a positive vision for the future, where tech benefits individuals and society as a whole. As more companies adopt this approach, Japan's efforts to create a harmonious, I said it earlier, did I not? Yeah, I did. And thriving society. Well, it's because they always mention it, right? With easier conception and stronger families, become an example for the rest of the world. For the rest of the world, you got to keep in mind, right? Sometimes certain countries have to be guinea pigs before you get more of that widespread mass adoption of these basic concepts. Now, for some people that are new to Jasmy, they're like, I don't understand what the heck this has to do with the token. You got to understand, it's not what the token necessarily does, it's what the token is connected to. If you're having perfect situations where you have a super wallet for crying out loud, and like we talked about the other day, that new company that says scanning your fingerprint, scans your little, like, it scans your eyes, scans your vein, your finger, all sorts of things to quickly be able to get you on board of a bullet train, a bus, you name it, for you can quickly and efficiently have this like ever flowing, or I should say harmonious flow, no pun intended, of this society, right? Society 5.0, which is just like a well-oiled machine, but taking out the concept of actual oil, right? The carbon out of it. He, of course, notes, declining birth rates is a significant issue, not only in Japan, but worldwide. I mean, obviously China. And it's possible that the intention behind creating Society 5.0 was to establish an environment that promotes family in Japan. Even here in the United States, right? We have declining birth rates, do we not? So people blame that on the concept of millennials and, them not reproducing, like, Gen X and so on. True. These, of course, are just his personal thoughts. I thought I would share it as well. But we're not going to end it right there, all right? I want to get into a little bit more about what we have in regards to this. So on this next part, I want to show you guys this, all right? And if anything, this comes straight from Hara himself. All right, so the other day, some of you guys, I even saw Boomer, right? Boomer F and Sooner was saying, is this whole thing of Jasmy, Binance Japan, a nothing burger. It's a nothing burger rate currently speaking, but I think here soon it will be something that's more than a nothing burger. Now, I was under the impression that we had the unbanning of foreign stablecoins, but we did not, right? We're talking about USDT, Circle, and so on. Now, I don't have information about what's going on with USDT as far as that being unbanned. I do have some information that may have flown under the radar for you guys in regards to Circle. So if anything on this, we're going to tie a little bit of that Stellar, right? And also that Jasmy together, right? This will be the second time I've done something like this. But nonetheless, check this out for a second, right? Back to Hara. He says, it's nice to meet CoinStore users. Now, we're going to get into the whole concept of CoinStore in a bit. He says, Jasmy plans to aggressively expand to Southeast Asia this year. I think that you've already seen that, that seed has already been planted since the beginning of this year, has it not? Especially in Hong Kong. Says, talks about the Indonesian region. Talk about, for instance, Bajit, right? One of you guys in the comments, I don't know if it was I don't know if it was GG. I don't know if it was Din Yu, aka Din G. I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know if it was Magic Power, but one of you guys stated that Bajit, the I in Bajit, stands for Indonesia. I wasn't aware of that. So it makes sense to me, this whole concept of, aggressively expanding to the southeastern region and especially Indonesia. For an island country, a lot of people live in Indonesia. Okay. So they have already begun to roll out this original product, right? They have also entered into this partnership as part of this effort. They also plan to exhibit at conferences and expos. They've already done that, right? We've already seen them consistently do that, even with all the flooders, want to focus on the whole concept of, the bad news of Binance US, and they just keep focusing on that. If they don't focus on that, then what was the other thing they focus on? Oh, look at this all-time chart, 99% down. Okay, you got to keep in mind, look at how much was in the circulating supply. Look at what the market cap was at that time. It wasn't even like barely $1 million, right? Big differences of where Jasmy is now and where it was then. But they want to reference the same chart. If that's all the research they got, let them bring it. At the end of the day, do more of your own research. Come to your own conclusion. Now, this is financial advice. Jasmy Inc. is a company that develops and provides IoT platforms. We know that. Internet of Things. When all things are connected to the internet, clothing, food, housing, and movement, which are closely connected to people's lives, this will change dramatically. Jasmy's mission, and I want you guys to see this if you're a first-time person who ever connected and don't know much about Jasmy. If you want to know about their mission, look at this. This is straight from Hara. He knows about their mission. Boom. Jasmy's mission is to create and provide a platform that allows anyone to use things easily, safely, and with peace of mind. It's one thing to have this concept of the personal data locker and so on. Sounds good on paper, but do people understand it? Well, that's something we try to consistently keep you guys into the know by giving you different use cases about this. Or if anything, like the other thing that we showed the other day, another utility layer for Jasmy, a new partnership, right? It says nowadays, important data generated from our daily lives tends to be held by a limited number of companies, right? Facebook, aka Meta, Google, Amazon, Apple, some of the other ones. One of the goals of the Jasmy platform is to restore the sovereignty of data to its rightful owners and to enable the safe and secure use of individual data. To this end, Jasmy will fuse Internet of Things with blockchain tech to prepare a platform that can be widely used across industries and business sectors based on unprecedented ideas. Right. The JV, was it the JVCEA, aka the FSA, formerly known as the FSA? You got to keep in mind, Jasmy was the first regulatory compliant blockchain project in Japan. Hence why it's called the Bitcoin of Japan. I know people don't like it being called that. That's not the point. That's why it gets that title, right? Because it was the first. Jasmy's team is composed of members with diverse and rich experience. Yeah, the Sony connections. It doesn't just end there. Genki Oda, SBI Japan, BitPoint. He's literally part of the JVCEA, FSA. So many abbreviations. Sometimes I can't keep up with it all. All right. But yeah, look at all the ones that they're connected to. Electronics, mechanics, telecommunications, devices, system integrators, designers. They're going to provide the best, not just like an okay, but the best IoT platform for each of our customers around the world. Some people say there is no way they could provide the best. Well, last I checked, that Sony did produce some of the best technology for numerous different devices, did they not? Like literally what Steve Jobs was demonstrating a while back, in regards to that camcorder, right? That was a breakthrough with HD technology back in the mid 2000s, like 2005 and so on. But he showed you that device costs basically $3,500. How would you just like to have, like, for instance, an Apple iPhone that could just put that right into your phone, right? And now we see everything standard nowadays is even on both on the iPhone and Android devices, you have these technologies. It's pretty awesome stuff. But you better believe that we're not going to dismiss Sony, right? That is their connect. That is their plug. All right. So basically speaking, coinstore.com, they have this new token listing for Jasmy. A lot of us don't know about coinstore.com. Let's be honest, they're not as big of a platform as some of the other ones, right? But it is a big deal. It's nice to see yet another one for Jasmy to be on. That's pretty cool. All right. The next part of what I want to get into real quick before we kick it back into the comments. It says from this guy, and I've seen a lot of his tweets, Cyan1K. He says, are we bullish on Jasmy right now? And what I like about this tweet real quick is this. It's a reminder of what has been going on in Japan, and especially with Jasmy. So check this out. So he says, taxation amendments on unrealized gains in Japan, not punishing people for those capital gains, right? Different narrative, especially what we got here in the United States. Super wallet in development. I don't have the answers. By all means, nobody's giving me secret information about some of the stuff. I don't have a quant papa of Jasmy. I wish I did, but even then, I'm not going to be able to share some of that stuff. You know what I mean? But the point is, I personally believe that the super wallet will be out by the end of the year. To me, that makes sense. Okay. I have called it right, at least on one thing this year, right? I did say that I feel as though we would get a Ripple victory against the SEC. That happened. So far I'm doing pretty good. Right. I've also called some other things, right, where, you know, people are like, no, nothing, no hints of any bullishness is going to happen. Look what happened with that. So it's not about, you know, always being right. It's just looking at some data. That's all it is, right? I could be wrong on some things. How about this? Listed on Binance, Japan, after prior making the innovation zone. True, right? That was bad news. Turned bad news into good news. Now, I agree. Just having a listing on Binance Japan right now is not going to get the job done, right? Being able to swap it and stuff like that, just not quite going to be able to get the job done. We want to be able to see spot trading. Otherwise, yeah, Boomer F Sooner is right. It's kind of a nothing burger at the moment. We're going to get into that here in a bit. Q4 lockup. Lots of rumors about it. Only seeing one little snippet about it. Is there anything going to come out of that? Jasmy, the team, Har and all them, they're going to have to eventually address it. Again, if you're getting your hopes up of 100% lockup, or 100% lockup, but like a significant lockup all at once, I'm telling you flat out, that's not going to happen. I think it's going to be in increments, and I think if anything, they're going to wait for the right moments. Again, I keep saying it, but for you newcomers, please understand this. There's a thing called the Bitcoin halving. It's going to happen in April of next year. It ain't going to make sense to lock it all up before the halving, right? At the end of the day, it's kind of like, you know, the concept of Independence Day, 4th of July, New Year's Eve fireworks, right? Are you going to shoot off the whole grand finale before the grand finale is supposed to come? No, you're not. So that's one way of looking at it. 97% plus total supply introduced. Sony connections. We talked about that how many times? The many patents of Kazumasa Sato. Even showed you another patent yesterday or the day before that. So they're always innovating. KPI targets of $17 by 2026. Again, I get where some of you guys are coming from, even on a tweet from Biggie Smalls, you know, not the real, I wish was the real Biggie Smalls, RAP Biggie Smalls. But anyway, he says, if they don't get close to that KPI, a lot of you guys don't feel like they'll get close to it. But a lot of us feel that we'll get to $1 at least. And that in itself, I don't know about you, but I'm not complaining about that. For some of us, that's life-changing money. Or some of you guys would say life-changing money, right? All right, so on this last part, I want to get into this. And this is something that may have flown under the radar for you a while back. So please smash that like for some Jasmy and some things that you may not have been aware of. So I have to address the big elephant in the room. And that basically is, Max, what the blood clot, man? We got basically Jasmy on Binance Japan, no spot trading. You could do a swap. It's just listed there. Whoop de freaking do, man. What about like, you know, some of these other platforms, Coinbase, crypto.com, where they have listings for cryptocurrencies, but you can't trade them. Remember XRP? Yeah, I'm with you, my friend. I totally get where you guys are coming from. So I was under the impression that we got the unbanning of the foreign stablecoins, but I even noticed there was no official announcement, but everything kind of led to like, okay, well, maybe that actually happened. No, No, what was different was there was the stable coins domestically, but the foreign stable coins, right, as we know, enabling a whole population of people to have access through pairings, that's still a big deal. And if anything, that will be huge for Jasmy because they did enter Binance Japan. So keep in mind, spot trading gets enabled, the pairings get enabled by actually getting verification of these foreign stable coins being unbanned, and then this new thing with Binance Japan, again, access. It's one thing about adoption, but the access of the pairings has always been crucial. So a while back, right, this was July 5th, and we were focusing on so many other things. We have talked about a little bit about this, but hear this out for a second, because right as we speak, USDT and USDC, aka Circle, is still banned over in Japan, but they stated that by summer, it was supposed to be by June, that this was supposed to be unbanned. Remember what I also said? It may get delayed. So let's jump back to this. This was originally posted from CoinDesk. It was in July. Circle considers issuing stablecoin in Japan under new rules. Again, this is what flew under the radar, right? And I don't think we did report specifically on this. We talked about some of the concepts. You'll see some people in this little brief interview that you recognize. But if anything, what's going on with this? So it says Circle CEO Jeremy Allaire expressed interest in partnerships in the country, given the new rules governing stablecoins have come into effect. We're going to play this. I know some of you guys kind of give him hell sometimes because you're like, this guy looks like he just, tied one on. Hey, it's the message of what counts, right? So we're going to play this. It's only 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Listen to the message. We'll get more into this. And if anything, I'll give you my thoughts on where I think we're going to go with this. Smash that like. Here we go.
Co-founder and CEO Jeremy Allaire said the company is considering issuing a stablecoin in Japan under new rules. Emily, you've been following the story closely. Talk to us about the new legislation that came into effect on June 1st.
Sure. So CoinDesk Japan, our colleagues at CoinDesk Japan interviewed Jeremy Allaire about Circle and some of their thoughts about the Japanese market. And basically, what Jeremy Allaire told them is that Circle is considering issuing a stablecoin in Japan. Now, on the surface, this might not seem like such a bold statement. Okay, he's considering it, he's looking at it, but it's actually very significant because until recently, that would have been impossible. And now it is possible because Japan, and I think a lot of people don't know this, stablecoins were essentially not allowed in Japan until very, very recently. And that's recently changed. Now, it's not going to be easy to do this. There's quite a process to go through. But, Circle is one of the players that I think sees the market opportunity in Japan. Whether or not they're going to issue a stablecoin in Japan remains an open question. And there's a lot of hoops that they would have to jump through in order to do it. But I think the fact that we have such a major player now exploring the Japanese market really sort of signals the beginning of a new era in Japan, which is like the beginning of the stablecoin era, which has not been the case up until now.
Yeah. So how essentially do we know anything about how it would work? Or I assume this is a stable coin that's based on the yen, correct? I mean, they must think that there's some demand or there will be a demand for it.
Well, I think, Jeremy Allaire obviously was, careful and we don't know exactly what Circle's plans are again, or if they're even going to do this. But I think now there is possibility for both yen-based stablecoins and dollar-based stablecoins. Now, I think from the Japanese perspective, what I'm hearing is that there is some interest in having a yen-based stablecoin because that's just something that could potentially just increase the usage of JPY. So I think just from a policy perspective, I think there's definitely interest in that and just sort of, creating sort of like easier transactions, in sort of the blockchain crypto world via JPY stablecoin. So I think that is part of the goals for Japan here in doing this. I mean, it's really notable here that at a time when, the US, for example, I mean, there's been so many stablecoin bills, right? We're always talking about them on the show, and we have yet to see one become a reality. And, it's interesting that Japan would sort of choose now to kind of open up to stablecoins. In fact, they're one of the first countries to do so, clearly because they see some sort of opportunity here, rather than risk. However, it's worth saying that this is going to be a very, very strict sort of regime. Like, for example, say you have a stable coin, Japan is requiring that like the money that backs that stable coin is basically kept in Japan, right? So they want, total one-to-one redemption. So I think it's fair to say that there are some stable coins which will remain nameless, major stable coins out there that probably will not make it into the Japanese market because I don't think they would agree to such terms. And there's only certain type. Yeah, I mean, you can name
one
them.
that rhymes with feather.
but but there are other rules in terms of like only certain types of institutions can issue stable coins. So again, not going to be easy. This is generally the case with Japanese crypto regulation, is that like they're very forward thinking, they're very welcoming, but they're very tough. So I think that's really the question, is like how this is going to play out and what kind of players will make it into the Japanese market. But I do think Circle's statement is definitely significant.
Zooming out, Emily, this sounds very similar to what we were just talking about with Yat in regards to Hong Kong being very welcoming to Web3, but also having quite strict regulation. Can you tell us about the broader Web3 perspective in Japan outside of stablecoins? What's happening there?
Yeah, I think Hong Kong and Tokyo are quite similar in a lot of ways, because both of them, and again, it's so different from the US. I mean, when you come to Tokyo and you see, so I was, at a crypto conference in Kyoto, there were, I don't know, the organizer said there was something like 9,000 people there, mostly from Asia. I mean, just really like a lot of energy and optimism, a very different vibe from the US. And, you have the Japanese government, you had the Japanese prime minister actually give an opening address at this crypto conference. He didn't really talk about crypto, but still, can you imagine President Biden giving an opening address at a crypto conference? I find it slightly hard to imagine, right? So just on the symbolic level, Japan is kind of all in, right? I mean, they're just really, promoting Web3 and welcoming Web3. I guess the other side of it is that it is strict. And I think, for example, the stablecoin rules are strict. There are other areas where it's very strict. I think it's difficult to operate an exchange in Japan. Coinbase didn't make it. Kraken didn't make it. They both left the Japanese market. There are various reasons for that, but I think, it's generally known that this is difficult. I think there are also some tax obstacles that remain. Japan recently did relax this one very onerous tax restriction on unrealized gains, but you do still hear a lot of complaints about high taxes for crypto. So it's not exactly the easiest place to do crypto, but like Hong Kong, it's clear and it's welcoming. And I think we will see more crypto businesses kind of looking to Japan and Hong Kong in the future.
How will this affect CBDCs in Japan?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, there's definitely talk of a digital yen, but it's not the same kind of like animated is a very euphemistic term, debate that we see in the United States, right? Like you don't hear, presidential candidates saying that, this is going to be a surveillance mechanism. I mean, you're not really.
They don't have Florida in Japan. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. There's not a Japanese version of, DeSantis
Florida
saying that this is a surveillance instrument. So I don't get the sense right now that there's the same kind of divide between, CBDCs versus stablecoins, and the two of them, can't exist. I mean, I think if the Japanese government thought that, then they, I don't think the road for stablecoins would be as open as it is now. But I think that remains to be seen. I mean, I think it's unclear exactly what is going to happen with the digital yen, but I don't get the sense that they are in this sort of like stark competition in the way that many frame it in the United States.
Emily, thank you for that. It's always a pleasure zooming out and getting the global perspective on this industry with you.
All right, glad to share that with you guys. We got this next part that we're going to get into in just a bit. And basically speaking is, we talk about the whole situation with Circle, right? And, it's like, well, there's not really a lot about Tether. There is a little bit about Tether. So if anything, we're going to pull that up as well. Check this out. But let me go ahead and share this with you guys. But basically speaking, I mean, I think we do get some kind of announcement soon. They can't just keep delaying it. I mean, technically speaking, they could. But, why go through all this trouble about the unbanning of all this, right? If you're not going to include the two biggest players, which is basically Tether and Circle. So, they gave you that perspective of what's going on with, obviously, Circle. What I'm going to jump into right now is this right here. It's in regards to Tether, because, at the end of the day, why not get into some of this as well? So please smash that like for this. And I've gone ahead and fast forwarded to the Tether segment. This one is only going to be about roughly 3 minutes. Please smash that like. Thank you for being here. Here we go.
Yeah, look, Japan's definition also means a stable coin can only be issued by licensed banks, by registered money transfer agents. Now, where does that leave the likes of Circle and Tether?
Yeah, I mean, look, Circle, I think Jeremy at Circle's mentioned that they might be going for a banking license in the US. When it comes to Tether, I'm not actually sure what their plans are. I think the main point here is that it's really around to regulatory costs and how that's going to be weighed up. So even if you take USDC as an example, and can you really expect stablecoin issuers to have licenses in hundreds of countries? Because it will be very, very prohibitive for fintech businesses to go down that route. And so really, I think, Joel, it really comes back down to, how these regulations are going to be written up. Because if every single country requires every single stablecoin to be regulated under their own individual licensing agreements, it's very much like going back to the old fiat or CBBD, as in the central bank digital coin, type product, which is neither here nor there in growing the crypto ecosystem, in my view.
Yeah, look, historically, Japan has taken the lead in setting some of these crypto regulations, as I mentioned a moment ago, certainly among the developed world. Given that most jurisdictions are now up in the ante, particularly in the aftermath of Terra, what sort of influence could we see from Japanese regulations in particular on these rules that could come up elsewhere?
Japan has been very forward planning on crypto regulation, and historically, we've also seen a proposed bill in the US from Senator Loomis and Gillibrand coming out. If you look at the stablecoin section of that proposed bill, and you again notice a very similar theme to the Japanese one, where it's very pro fiat based, 100% backed in fiat only type stablecoins like USDC, and completely glosses part what is a huge growing part of the stablecoin universe, which is the crypto backed and algo backed stablecoin. So the Japanese are definitely in line with the US on this. So we're hoping that the US takes the lead on how stablecoins will be regulated and how they will look, no matter what type of stablecoin it is. Having said that, though, Joel, one of the things that Japan was being very kind of in the front of is lowering leverage for users. In that front, Japan is very much ahead, and I think leading the way that regulators will see that part of trading, no matter what asset class, to be clear.
All right, listen, Sudhi, thank you so much for that. Great to speak to you as always.
All right, so real quick, basically speaking, we of course want to see these pairings be unbanned. We understand what kind of access this will give, tremendous amounts of new volume, especially to Japan, let's face it. But if anything, one of the key things I want to point out is, again, Tara Kona, right? Japan's foreign digital minister, former defense minister for Japan. You got to keep in mind, he's still active in what he's doing and introducing over to Europe, various other countries, and so on. So when you see that report that mentions that, the United States is basically copying the same model of Japan, they're not necessarily taking DFFT like on paper and copying every single thing and calling it DFFT. If anything, they're calling it something different. Are we going to be that much far behind as far as introducing, I guess you could say, this crypto bill, if you will? Well, we'll see what happens with that. But in the time being, if you're getting reports that Tara Kono is literally getting the job done across the board, not just for obviously Japan and Asian countries, but also Europe, the European Union, right? We understand that, what was her name? Margaret Vestager, if I'm not mistaken, key proponent of the European Union, all on board to get this thing really, really going. So if the European Union is literally on board, then that means the rest of the world is on board. So if we have a shift going on and you see the United States copying this, right, just like they said, well, is it going to be Circle first? I think that's what's going to happen. Basically, my own take is it's not going to be both stable coins at once like we're hoping. I think it's going to be Circle USDC first, which I'm not complaining. That's going to allow a whole bunch of new volume to come in. And then Tether will follow second. currently speaking, Tether takes the cake with what we have here because they simply do more volume. But you got to keep in mind, this is Japan that we're talking about. So we'll have to pay more close attention to this and see what happens. But, you know, my guess, if I had to guess and be speculative on the prediction, it might very well get dragged through the mud by the end of the year. Will be perfect timing along with that super wallet. Yeah, but in reality, it's not so much about the super wallet being paired with USDT. That benefits more of the Japanese citizens and, you know, places in Asia, abroad, and so on. Not necessarily so much here. But if their long-term goal for Jasmy is to do secure blockchain PCs, the English versions, then yes, you know, having those pairings is obviously going to make sense. So again, guys, we'll pay attention to what happens with it.